When I sat down in front of my old gaming console that chilly autumn evening, I had no idea that one single quote would lead to a revelation that would change my understanding of friendship forever. I had grown up with gaming as my escape, a comforting ritual from childhood through adulthood. My friends and I had spent countless hours immersed in vast digital worlds, triumphing over impossible odds and sharing laughter filled with our most ridiculous inside jokes. So, when Stephen, my longtime friend, threw out a seemingly random quote during our regular gaming night, something he thought was trivial, a moment of nostalgia, I couldn't help but wonder if I was missing something deeper. We were playing an unnamed game that had become shorthand for our teenage summers, a classic that had shaped our bond. As the main character faced yet another absurd situation, Stephen casually said, "I don't even have to be in the same room to know you're laughing." It struck me hard. How many times had I felt the same way about him, knowing that laughter was a bond stronger than physical presence, particularly when it often felt like our lives were drifting apart in the monotony of adulthood. For weeks after that, I couldn't shake off that quote, replaying it in my mind like a soundtrack of nostalgia. Each time I picked up my controller, the laughter echoed, but beneath it lay a nameless anxiety. I sensed a rift growing between us, meetings became sporadic, and conversations dwindled to small talk that barely scratched the surface of our once vibrant friendship. I couldn't pinpoint why it hurt so much. Perhaps it was the unspoken tension of unfulfilled plans or the means of living different lives, as families and careers began to take precedence over our escapades. One night, while the pixels danced on screen and the soundtrack wove between our nostalgic banter, I hesitantly asked Stephen if he felt it too. Silence enveloped the atmosphere like a heavy fog, and for a moment, I feared I had crossed an unseen boundary. Finally, he sighed, the weight of 1,000 unwritten words hanging in the air. He admitted he felt disconnected, as if we were two players in a multiplayer game who had unwittingly wandered off into different maps. It was his honesty that instigated the wave of vulnerability washing over me, and suddenly, my emotions spilled out, my worry about us, my guilt over lost time, how I missed the casual hangouts that felt effortless back in college. It was an odd thing, to expose your feelings like this, especially when you're wired to keep the game face on, but it felt liberating. We spent the next few hours talking, reminiscing about shared experiences, those late-night campaigns and epic wins that felt like they could last forever. Laughter bubbled up freely in between our confessions, as the weight of underlying tension began to lift. There, in that dimly lit room filled with the faint glow of the screen and the comforting scent of takeout, we decided to reignite that lost spirit. We made a pact to carve out time each month to really dedicate ourselves to gaming together again, not just as a means of entertainment, but as a canvas to reconnect with one another. In those moments, I felt a warmth wrapping around our friendship, a reminder that sometimes a single quote can unpack layers hidden during bustling lives and responsibilities. Weeks turned into months, and though our gaming nights were sometimes fraught with the chaos of life, work and personal issues testing our resolve to reconnect, we held on to that promise. As I sit here, reflecting on how that small, seemingly innocuous moment spiraled into a deeper understanding of what it means to truly nurture a friendship, I realize that sometimes you just need a little spark, a whisper of nostalgia to shake things loose. Today, the gaming marathons aren't just about the achievements anymore, they serve as our therapy sessions, allowing us to unload, laugh, and share in the absurdity of our adult lives. It dawned on me that the love and support carried through friendships can be as fulfilling and reinventable as the fantastical realms we escape into. A week later, as if to close the chapter on this rediscovered saga, Stephen sent me an update, a meme that perfectly encapsulated that feeling of gaming together, reminding me of our inside jokes. Attached was a caption, "You may not be in the same room, but your laughter always fills the void." It was more than humorous, it felt reassuring, a touch of light in life's more serious moments. I found myself smiling, knowing that through the world of games and vulnerability, we had unconditionally connected again, evolving our friendship into something richer, all because of one small but impactful quote. As the days turned into weeks following Stephen's meme, the surreal blend of nostalgia and newfound connection lingered in the air like a comforting fog. I would often find myself scrolling through our past chats, reliving those countless nights spent unlocking achievements together, each message a flashback to laughter echoing through our headsets while gaming deep into the night. Life had shifted dramatically since we'd drifted apart, more responsibilities, heavier workloads, life wrapped in its unpredictable chaos, but that little meme seemed to have opened a door back to a place of joy that I thought had been locked forever. One afternoon, I decided to reach out, wanting to explore this revitalized friendship rather than letting it dwindle into another series of missed opportunities. "Hey, "Wanna team up this weekend? I hear they've got a new event going on," I typed, my finger hovering over the send button, a nervous twinge in my stomach. After what felt like an eternity, my phone chimed with a response, "Absolutely. Let's wreck some noobs." The ease of his words washed over me, soothing my anxiety like a balm. As Saturday approached, I prepped my setup, rearranging my desk and ensuring my headset was charged, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through me. We met in the virtual arena, our avatars clashing against each other in a fervor that felt strangely liberating. Each victory brought shouts of triumph, each defeat was swiftly turned into a shared joke, and soon, the initial awkwardness melted away like ice under the warmth of the spring sun. The laughter rolled easily, punctuated by quick witticisms that felt completely organic and familiar, and I realized that I had missed him. Between rounds, we chatted about life, drifting from stories of our routines to hilarious anecdotes from the trenches of adulthood. It felt like time had folded back on itself, erasing the distance built by years of silence. Yet, I could still feel the ghost of that unspoken tension lingering, the memories of both good times and regrets hovering in the backdrop, waiting for a moment of acknowledgement. One of our victories led us into an unexpectedly emotional conversation, sparked by a seemingly benign comment about how difficult it is to find genuine friendships as adults. "It's crazy how when we were kids, all it took was showing up at the park to make friends," I said, my voice quieter in the sea of digital banter. His character paused, a rare moment of silence stretching between us as he processed the words. "Yeah, it's like we forget how to reach out," he replied gently, and the sincerity of it struck me like a chord plucked in an empty room. The sentiment hung there, an invisible thread connecting our experiences of loneliness and longing, the struggle of feeling like you're drifting in the currents of life away from those who matter most. That was when I took a deep breath and decided to bare a little of my soul. "You know, after everything, I always thought I messed things up between us. I got caught up in my life and let it take over," I confessed, the words spilling out with a mix of vulnerability and hope. I wish things had stayed the same." I held my breath, waiting for him to respond, silence amplifying my fears. "I felt it too," he finally said, deep and thoughtful. "Life threw us off our game, but I realize it's never too late for a respawn." I chuckled softly, relief settling in my chest. We spoke more about our drifts apart, the choices that had led us to this moment, and as we did, I could almost feel the shadows of regret ebbing away, replaced by the dawning warmth of understanding. We gradually crafted what felt like a new foundation for something brighter, a mix of past and present that was uniquely ours. Hours melted away into a pleasant blur, and when we finally signed off, the air was heavy with a contentment I hadn't felt in years. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling that elusive ache of nostalgia not as a sad reminder but as a comforting call to arms. Our friendship was evolving, not just from a single quote but from an entire narrative of recovery, laughter, and connection rebuilt. I couldn't help but wonder where this journey would take us next, embracing the uncertainty with hopes for shared gaming nights, inside jokes, and the sweet bond that comes from facing both the virtual and real worlds together. Without a doubt, we had found the portal back to each other, and I was eager to discover what adventures awaited us beyond the screen. A week later, I received another message from Steven. "Hey, I just found a bunch of old clips of us playing. Let's make a highlight reel of our epic moments." I couldn't help but laugh. Through all the chaos, he was still the same guy who loved to make memories. "Count me in," I replied, feeling that familiar thrill of excitement. As I settled down to sleep that night, the gentle buzz of anticipation swirled through my mind like the sound of levels being completed, and I realized sometimes it takes a simple meme to reignite not just friendships, but a journey of rediscovery. The next morning, I could hardly contain my excitement as the thought of revisiting those old gaming memories danced in my mind. When night fell, and the rest of the world drifted into its slumber, I found myself in an all-too-familiar spot, nestled in my comfortable chair, a soft blanket draped across my legs, and the glow of my computer screen illuminating the room. I opened the chat thread with Steven and felt a surge of nostalgia as I scrolled through our past conversations, a digital scrapbook of laughter and togetherness. Memories flooded back, those long nights spent battling virtual foes, the passionate debates over strategy, and the gleeful moments when we pulled off some ridiculous play against all odds. Our gaming sessions had become not just about achieving victories but about bonding, about being there for each other in a way life often made challenging. We were two college kids trying to navigate the intricacies of adulthood, and gaming became our sanctuary. The memory of Steven's infectious laughter echoes in my mind like a cherished tune. It reminded me of how, Beneath the surface of our playful banter, we had shared vulnerabilities about our futures, our fears, and often our loneliness. "Okay, so what clips do you want me to start with?" I typed eagerly, and moments later, Steven sent a slew of hilarious highlight snippets, reminding me of our best moments, the time we had surprisingly defeated a notoriously tough boss after countless tries, his triumphant scream followed by an eruption of laughter, and the image of my character tumbling off a cliff yet again because my fingers weren't keeping up with his over-the-top strategies. As I began piecing them together, I could feel the exhilaration building, a project sparked by shared history rather than just pixels and gameplay. It was as if every clip reanimated the emotions we'd packed into those virtual worlds. I sat back, reveling in our camaraderie, acknowledging how these memories had woven themselves tightly into the fabric of our friendship. Once the compilation started to take shape, I felt a surge of pride, a creation born from our journey. "You've got to see this when it's done," I told him, and he responded with an enthusiastic emoji-laden message expressing how much he was looking forward to reliving those moments. We quickly set a date for the unveiling, and I could hardly sleep that night, my mind replaying each clip as I envisioned our reactions. The day of the highlight reel reveal arrived, and I felt a familiar thrill as I joined our call. Steven's face lit up when he saw the title on the screen, "Epic Adventures, The Best of Us." I pressed play, and the sounds of our younger selves filled the air, laughter mixing with the background music I had chosen to accompany our exploits. We found ourselves lost in the same essence as before, those moments that felt so expansive, so freaking monumental in our lives. We were so bad. Steven howled as a clip had us both running in circles, completely oblivious to the task at hand. I replied lightheartedly, "No, we were just misunderstood geniuses." It was a simpler way to describe how we had stumbled through everything with unwavering determination. As the reel reached its climax with a montage of our best moments, I looked over at Steven, his excitement palpable. "Look at us," he said, grinning from ear to ear, "I missed this." Those words settled deeply within me, resonating with an unspoken truth I often felt but could never articulate. Our laughter lingered long after the video ended, and soon enough, we found ourselves diving into conversations that felt deeper, more emotional, sharing what we were currently facing in life, the challenges and uncertainties, the struggle between dreaming big and the weight of reality. It was in those conversations that I felt us shift from just friends into a true support system, the kind forged through years filled with shared laughter and tears, victories in games leading to victories in life. As the night dwindled, we promised to continue our collaborations and reconnect with the joy of not only gaming together but sharing our journeys. I felt a reconnection echoing in my heart, reaffirming that while life would always take us through different paths, some bonds would always guide us back home, illuminating the way in moments when we feel most lost. And as I crawled into bed, thoughts tinged with excitement and gratitude, I realized that sometimes it takes a journey through outlandish adventures in a virtual world to find your way back to a cherished friendship, reminding you that laughter truly fills the void. Weeks passed, and with every video call, every recorded session, and every shared meme, the bond between Steven and I only strengthened. It was as if we were weaving a new tapestry from the old threads of our friendship, occasionally laughing about how ridiculous it felt to navigate this adult life together, holding on tightly to our shared love of gaming, a love that had effortlessly bridged the gap time and distance had created. The thrill of recounting our digital quests inevitably led us into discussions about our personal quests too, the stories evolving into sincere conversations about our hopes, dreams, aspirations, and often, what we feared losing along the way. Then, just as life can often take an unexpected turn, I received a message that made my heart drop. It was from Steven, but this time it was different. It was an apology, tinged with grief. His father had fallen ill rather quickly, and the family was facing uncertain times. My heart sank. I had seen what health struggles could do, the emotional toll it bore on both the individual and their closest people. I felt a sense of helplessness wash over me, but I knew that sometimes, the greatest support one can offer is simply being there. I messaged him back, "I'm here for you, Steve. Whatever you need, I'm just a call away." That message felt insufficient but was the lingering echo of our camaraderie from years past. I knew just offering my presence would mean something, even if I couldn't wave a magic wand to fix it all. As the days rolled on, Steven went quiet, and doubt tugged at me, wondering if I was really being supportive from far away. In moments of confusion, I started remembering those chaotic gaming nights filled with joy, humor, and companionship. I realized that perhaps the very essence of our bond was precisely what he needed, fundamentally rooted in just being present. Eventually, I received a brief message, "I'm okay for now, just finding my way through. Knowing he'd reached out gave me a spark of hope. I decided to take the initiative and scheduled a gaming night. I sent him an invite to play our favorite game once again. We can't let ancient heroics fade. Your laughter is the quest I need to complete, I texted jokingly. He accepted. That night felt familiar, and despite the dark cloud hovering above any concerns about health, we embarked on our digital adventure. As we slid back into our groove, the playful banter returned, notes of laughter mingling once more as we battled side by side, perhaps proving that laughter is more than just a response, it can heal and provide strength in moments of uncertainty. And at the end of the evening, as we faced our virtual enemies, I felt something I hadn't in a while. Despite the world outside being tumultuous, within that pixelated universe, we built something special again, re-establishing that vital connection. It was calming and a reminder that amid life's unpredictable seasons, friendships forged in laughter can often become a lifeline in the darkest times. A few weeks later, before another session, Stephen reached out saying he felt grateful for that small reprieve we'd gifted each other, claiming how that night had surprisingly helped him cope with everything happening around him. It's strange. He confessed, how just revisiting old memories can remind you of who you are. I couldn't agree more. Our lives had intertwined so beautifully that these gaming moments, once a form of distraction, had become a surface to resource each other, strengthening our resilience. This was no longer just about a game or mere laughter, it was a tapestry woven with care, memories, support, and love, reminding us that no matter where life tried to lead us, we'd always find our way back to one another, bridging any gap, laughing together in those chaotic yet magical virtual worlds. And eventually, I knew we'd create new memories, just like that one fateful meme, ushering in new laughter and connection. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I felt assured that with every laugh, every heroic quest, our enduring friendship was its own beautiful victory. I think back to that summer evening when I unknowingly embarked on a journey into the unsettling depths of my childhood fears, a simple choice, really, just me and my family, scrolling through channels, looking for something to watch together. My parents were always keen on introducing us to classic films, and that night, my older brother suggested we watch The Wizard of Oz. Little did I know, this beloved tale, often regarded as whimsical, would spiral into something that left a haunting impression on my young heart. As the opening credits rolled and the sun blazed lazily through the living room window, I felt a warm glow of nostalgia, lulled into a false sense of safety with my family gathered close. It all began innocently enough, daring Dorothy, yellow brick roads, and fierce flying monkeys, symbols of adventure and fantasy. However, the tone shifted as the ominous nature of the Wicked Witch of the West began to unfold. For a child with a vivid imagination, her cackling laughter and shrill voice sent shivers racing down my spine. I remember trying to hide behind the couch cushions, seeking refuge while my brother laughed at my fear, a typical sibling moment that felt both comforting and isolating. There was one scene in particular that shattered that safety net, when Dorothy's loyal dog, Toto, is taken away. At that moment, I could feel my heart tighten, and my young mind couldn't comprehend why anyone would hurt an innocent creature. It felt unjust, cruel even, and the weight of that was a heavy cloak around my shoulders, constricting my breath. I begged to turn it off, yet my parents insisted it was all a part of the story. I gripped the cushion tighter, tears threatening to spill over as I tried to rationalize their words, thinking perhaps it was just a benign part of the plot. But as the story continued to unfold, the witch's relentless chase and the grave threats to Dorothy's safety felt too real, too close, especially as I grasped the idea that fantasy could meld into fear. My family's laughter echoed around me as they cheered for Dorothy's resilience, yet I found myself paralyzed, lost in the maze of my own anxiety and concern for what came next. I spent sleepless nights thereafter, plagued by terrible dreams of green skin and cackling laughter, the images overlaid with shadows dancing menacingly in the corners of my vision. It became a ritual of sorts. I would watch my brother flick through channels, avoiding anything that might threaten to elicit that familiar dread. Over time, I learned to mask these fears, tucking them away into the recesses of my mind, where they lay dormant, only resurfacing occasionally to remind me of that feeling of vulnerability. Years passed, and I grew into a teenager, slowly distancing myself from the notion that one silly movie could leave an indelible mark on my psyche. But then, while scrolling through the threads of Reddit one city night, I stumbled upon a post titled "What movie trauma did you experience at a young age?" A simple phrase drawing forth reminiscences from strangers across the globe. I felt an undeniable urge to comment, sharing the story I had tucked away for so long. Reading through others' experiences illuminated my feelings, normalizing my fears and pain, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in being affected by something designed for children, a reminder that imagination can warp innocence into something darker. My comment led to a series of wonderful conversations, unexpected connections, and catharsis through shared vulnerabilities. As simple as it was, it felt like shedding layers of unnecessary shame, exploring how fear is a shared human experience, regardless of the context it manifests within. As I reflect on those dark childhood nights, I understand how I've woven that trauma into my broader story, how it taught me empathy and compassion towards others coping with their own fears. Today, I venture to revisit The Wizard of Oz, not with trepidation but with an understanding of how one innocuous decision can ripple through time, leaving traces of emotion laden with lessons learned and bonds formed. As I close the laptop and prepare for sleep, I feel a sense of lightness, knowing that my experience, once heavy on my heart, has transformed into a shared moment of humanity, something both tragic and beautiful, and perhaps, one that will weave its way into my ongoing narrative, my own tale combining fear, strength, and the magic of connection. As I lay in bed, the familiar melody of Over the Rainbow began to play in my mind, conjuring up images of a young girl swept away on a fantastical journey, one that mirrored my own in so many unintended ways. When I was 5, my father had taken me to see a local theater production of The Wizard of Oz, the kind where the actors were dressed in colorful costumes and the set resembled a quirky interpretation of the Yellow Brick Road. I remember clinging to his arm, mesmerized by the vibrant colors and the infectious energy of the crowd who sang along with each lyric. Yet, as the story unfolded, the looming shadows of the Wicked Witch and the anxiety of Dorothy's journey began to settle in the pit of my stomach. Even at that age, I sensed the weight of their struggles, an endless pursuit for belonging and courage, which felt achingly real. It wasn't until the climax, when the witch's cackling filled the theater and when her minions emerged, crawling through the mist, that my enchanted world shattered. I didn't just see a performance, I felt it. My young heart raced, blending confusion with fear, as I realized this would still end the same way for Dorothy. Even after confronting the darkness, she still had to return home. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep evaded me, and those feelings twisted and turned, a reflection of my inner child trying to decipher the horrors of the world. For years afterward, the sound of cackling disturbed my dreams, and shadows that flickered against my bedroom wall might as well have been flying monkeys come to take me away. My father, unaware of the trauma locked within my memories, would recount our outing fondly, insisting I'd loved every moment, his voice tinged with nostalgia, reinforcing a dichotomy I found difficult to navigate. In an effort to dissect this complicated fear, I spent years pretending I wasn't afraid, burying the truth beneath layers of bravado. My teenage years became an exercise in avoidance. I dodged conversations about the film even when it was referenced in casual banter, evading it until it faded into the background of my life. This avoidance seemed sufficient until I reached adulthood, where I began to realize how much I'd let that innocent childhood fear shape my decisions, how I shied away from challenging tasks, how I struggled with trusting others, and how I still occasionally flinched at laughter that boomed too loudly, as if it echoed the witch's echo. But now, years later, as I sat with my laptop, contemplating the lessons woven into that childhood trauma, I had decided to embrace the film once more, hoping it would do for me what it had initially failed to do: heal. As I hit play, the familiar scenery unfolded, the anticipation and anxiety mingling in my chest. I found myself smiling at the absurdity of the events while simultaneously crying during the tender moments of friendship and bravery. Each song evoked a new wave of understanding, buoying me through nostalgia but also catharsis. I sat there long into the night, lost within the confines of my memories, letting go of fear while grasping the significance of those friendships that carried Dorothy through her treacherous path. The journey became less about the foreshadowed terror and more about the beauty of resilience, of courage found in the most daunting of circumstances. As the credits rolled, a warmth enveloped me, which I can only describe as a reconnection with my younger self, as if I had held her hand on that winding road once again. It was a small yet profound moment of realization, that despite the fears that had once governed my life, I had navigated my way through dark times, just as Dorothy had. In looking back, I felt a sense of gratitude, recognizing that these experiences have shaped my narrative, each scar and twist adding depth to my existence. I turned off the laptop, content with the story I had retold, feeling lighter as I slowly drifted off to sleep, knowing the journey was ever evolving, and each chapter held a piece of magic, however unusual it might seem. And so, this post may not end with a neatly tied bow of resolution, but instead, Invite curiosity about the ever-unraveling adventure of life, where fears can morph into lessons, and trauma can become an authentic part of one's journey, threading us into the tapestry of collective stories we all share. As people sometimes say, it's only when we confront our fears that we discover the beauty hidden within our realities, a truth that is fundamentally human. If I learned anything that evening, it was that the wizard, often perceived as a chilling specter, was perhaps just another flawed individual struggling to find his own way home, and maybe that reflection revealed the most profound lesson of all: we are not so different after all. The next few days unfolded with a sense of lightness I hadn't anticipated. The heaviness that clung to my heart had almost completely dissipated. I looked forward to walking through my neighborhood with whispers of laughter from children playing in the park mixing with the gentle rustle of leaves, the world taking on a new vibrancy. I began to see familiar faces in a different light, particularly my grandmother, who had introduced me to the film all those years ago. A woman of profound wisdom and gentle strength, she had often shared stories of her own childhood fears, how she once hid beneath her bed at night, convinced that shadows danced maliciously along her walls. I thought back to the countless afternoons spent together, sipping tea and sharing dreams, moments when I was just a kid who believed in everything and nothing at once. One evening, determined to reconnect, I invited her over for dinner. I decided to include some of her favorite dishes, cottage pie and apple pie, the ones that always made her reminisce about her youth. As the aroma of baked apples wafted through my house, I felt a rush of gratitude for the bond we shared. When she arrived, there was a familiar warmth in her smile that instantly put me at ease. After dinner, as we settled into the cozy living room with mismatched throw pillows, I brought up the old film. "Remember how you showed me The Wizard of Oz?" I asked, half hoping she'd recall the same unsettling reactions we shared. Her eyes twinkled with sarcasm as she mused, "Did I traumatize you?" I laughed, but then fell quiet, reflecting on the way Dorothy's journey had unfolded both on the screen and within my life. "You know," I said, "I've realized the wizard is just a man lost in his own way, much like we all are. It's like confronting our own flaws." My grandmother listened intently, her face softening as she considered my words. "I suppose we all wear masks, can't find our way to the truth," she finally replied, her voice quiet yet resolute. With our conversation flowing naturally, it transformed into an exploration of her own childhood fears, how the adults in her life often spoke in hushed tones about the war, about loss, about the unknowns of their realities. It amazed me how we both had been shaped by a common grief, an inherited trauma that intertwined through generations. As the evening faded into night, soft laughter and shared stories draped over us like a warm blanket. I felt something profound happen, a shift. Where fear had previously planted seeds of oppression, a garden of understanding began to sprout, filled with vibrant colors of empathy and connection. It occurred to me that confronting my childhood fears had not only allowed me to heal but had given me a compass to navigate the emotional landscapes of those I loved. I began to see the tapestry of shared experiences as something not to shy away from but to embrace. The next day, I made an impromptu trip to the local library, feeling the urge to uncover more stories. I wandered through aisles of books, breathing in the musty scent of history and adventure. I stumbled upon a collection of short stories about fear and courage, flipping through pages until one caught my eye, an anthology containing tales from various authors recounting their childhood phobias and how those experiences shaped their adult lives. As I read, I realize the profound connections we weave are embedded not only in shared conversations but also in the scattered narratives waiting silently on library shelves. Each story felt like a breadcrumb leading back to the original theme I had uncovered with my grandmother: how vulnerability shapes us all into who we become. With each turn of the page, I felt a part of something larger, a communal bond with every reader who ever picked up that anthology, shared their own tales of terror and triumph. As I reflected, I saw the power of narrative, of connection, life's tragedy and beauty intertwined seamlessly. I came home that evening with an armful of books, excited to delve deeper into these human experiences. You see, revisiting The Wizard of Oz didn't just dim the shadows of my past fears, it illuminated my present journey toward healing and understanding. In those vulnerable moments, we lay bare our common threads, stitching together the intricate tapestry of our lives with sincere honesty, transforming fears from burdens into bridges. As I nestled down under the covers that night, with the comforting weight of novels beside me, I knew this journey wasn't about erasing pain but rather accepting it as a part of my canvas, a brushstroke of experience that made me uniquely me. And perhaps, that was the real magic I had been searching for all along. Update: I wrote and shared these reflections in an online community, expecting a handful of comments but instead found discussions blossoming around the shared experiences of growing up watching films that left long-lasting impressions. It became a safe space for storytelling, where people echoed my sentiments about fear, trauma, and growth. The most heartwarming part came when my grandmother joined the thread, sharing her own stories of loss and resilience, leading to a heartfelt connection with others in the comments. Through my act of vulnerability, the lens through which I viewed my grandmother shifted too, reminding me that our stories don't just shape us, they can open doors to others, bridging gaps we never knew were there. And in this digital age, we often find ourselves in the same vast, connected tapestry, richer for daring to share our truths. Every night, without fail, the air would grow thick with a heavy silence at precisely 10:52 p.m., as if the world had pressed pause on itself. Living in a small town like Brookshire, this unnerving ritual was an accepted part of life, a peculiar tradition that I had come to know for as long as I could remember. I would watch the clock tick down from my bedroom window, the cool moonlight casting long shadows across my floor, the only sound being the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. It was strange, really, how nobody ever spoke about it, not even in whispers. My parents never bothered to explain why every household, every shop, and even the streetlights would dim or flicker for 12 minutes each night, as if the entire town was collectively holding its breath. I often found myself puzzled, torn between my curiosity and an inexplicable instinct to just let it be, to let it weave itself into the fabric of my life like a long-held family secret. But that fateful summer night, curiosity won, fueled by a restless spirit and an idea that maybe, just maybe, I could peek behind the curtain of this nightly mystery that had haunted me. As I stitched together my plan, the thrill of uncovering a long-buried secret coursed through me like electricity, making my heart race with each passing second toward midnight. Armed with a flashlight and an insatiable need for answers, I slipped out of my room, careful not to disturb my sleeping parents. I stepped onto the cobblestone street, the night air crisp against my skin as I ventured down my familiar lane. I felt the familiar thrill of danger tingling along my spine, but I was fueled by purpose now. My best friend Jacob had always said that fear itself was just an illusion, a construct of the mind to keep us inside neatly wrapped boxes. Tonight, I was stepping out of mine, determined to find out what happened when the clock struck 11. As I approached the town square, I noticed the stillness, the shops darkened and locked, the park benches empty under the blanket of night. My pulse quickened. I had never been this close to the heart of the town during a lockdown. At 10:58, I ducked behind a large oak tree, its gnarled branches dipping low like bent old men in conversation. I could see the glow of the clock tower illuminating the street in soft gold, casting everything in a surreal haze. Then, suddenly, at 10:59, a wave of tension swept through the air, and the familiar flickering began. The town inhaled deeply, and I felt the breath of it rush past me, a wild wind rising but with no sound to accompany it. At 11 o'clock, the atmosphere shifted. I held my breath, straining to see beyond the shadows where the flickering flickered out entirely, leaving only the oppressive darkness draping over Brookshire. My flashlight's beam seemed feeble in comparison as I scanned my surroundings. Then I saw them, figures emerging slowly from every corner, gathering under the clock tower, their silhouettes merging and morphing into one another like the whispers of ghosts in the night. It was then that I realized the truth of the lockdown. They weren't ordinary townsfolk. They were different. They moved with a deliberate grace that sent chills running down my spine. As I stared in wide-eyed awe, I recognized familiar faces amongst the crowd, my neighbors, the shop owners, even the mailman, yet they wore strange expressions, devoid of any feeling I had ever associated with them. They seemed entranced, their eyes glossed over as they collectively shifted in rhythm, their bodies swaying as if conducting an invisible orchestra. I instinctively backed away, heart pounding in my ears, when I bumped into something solid, a single figure cloaked in dark fabric, its features obscured. I opened my mouth to scream, but panic paralyzed me, turning my voice to stone. That's when the figure leaned closer, a voice like gravel whispering, "If you want to know the truth, you must listen." The world around me melted into whispers, their secrets flying through the air, weaving tales of ancient pacts and sacrifices made to protect the town from the darkness beyond the edge of our small universe. Each night served as a mechanism of renewal, a moment to reinforce the bond between the town and whatever lurked outside our perimeter, a reminder of the fear that kept us all safe. Each of the 12 minutes before midnight allowed the townsfolk to offer up their fears, their regrets, to the void beyond. They would carry the weight of it while, for 12 minutes, Brookshire reclaimed its peace. As the clock struck 11 and the shadows began to disperse, Everything settled into an eerie tranquility. I felt the oppressive weight of understanding settle over me like a shroud. I had learned something no one else had spoken aloud, a truth that forced me to see my home in a startling new light. I slipped away, my heart racing as I retraced my steps in the quiet night. By the time I was safely back in my room, shame washed over me. I realized that in seeking the truth, I had stepped away from the comforting lies that had woven the town together. I lay awake long after the clock had chimed again, the town clutching its secrets tight. What would I do with this knowledge? That night, for the first time, I understood the weight of my neighbor's silent burdens, and the following days felt different. I walked the streets of Brookshire with a growing sense of unease, unable to shake the feeling that something was very wrong, and yet so very right about the ritual that I had once found absurd. The updates to my daily life became riddled with reminders of that fateful night, the slight nods from shopkeepers, the knowing smiles from those who had participated willingly, and in those moments, I grappled with the choice between ignorance and understanding. Months passed, and though I hadn't shared this experience with a single soul, I noticed the town changing subtly. The conversations felt deeper, the laughter more genuine, as if we were all carrying the weight of knowledge with us. I pondered often, should I tell someone? Could sharing do more harm than good? In the end, I decided it was wisdom best left as a quiet companion, a ghost story of sorts, a tale that shaped my framework of perception about our collective existence and the invisible lines we draw to stay safe, because perhaps not all knowledge is meant to comfort. And each night, as the clock struck 10:52 and the town would lock down, I would breathe deep, thanking the universe for the moment I had taken a leap beyond the known, and into the deeper layers of what life in Brookshire truly meant. As the clock struck 10:52 every night, a sense of calm and acceptance settled over me, a warm blanket in the chilly embrace of the unknown. The routine had become an intricate part of my life in Brookshire, a place that often felt like a quaint postcard from the past, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. Yet, as the siren wailed and the town fell silent around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was perched upon the edge of a precipice, gazing down into shadows that danced just out of sight. The first time I had experienced the lockdown, the eerie stillness that enveloped the streets, had been surreal. I was at a late-night study session with friends, the weight of midterms hanging heavy, our laughter spilling into the soft glow of the cafe's neon lights. Suddenly, the cheerful chatter was silenced by that haunting wail, and the cafe owner, a man with kindly eyes and a perpetual smile, turned off the main lights. "Don't worry, it will be over in just 12 minutes, he assured us, but the way his voice trembled slightly as he said it sent a chill down my spine. That first evening, curiosity gnawed at me. What could possibly happen during those 12 minutes that required our town to lock down every night? I began to dig deeper, asking friends and neighbors, weaving through rumors and anecdotes, a silent detective with no plan beyond satiating my curiosity. Most, it seemed, had long since accepted the routine. It was a part of life in Brookshire, whispered about but never dissected. Still, I was undeterred, driven by an insatiable urge to uncover the truth, to reveal the hidden stories tucked between the seams of our town's fabric. Nights turned into weeks, and I collected stories that spoke of strange occurrences, muffled sounds echoing through the air, flickering lights, and sometimes, faint reflections in the windows that vanished when looked upon directly. But no one ever spoke about what lay behind those 12 minutes. Perhaps I was foolish, but I felt a peculiar sense of connection to whatever secret lingered in the shadows. It wasn't until one fateful night that I stumbled upon an old journal hidden in the attic of my grandmother's long-abandoned house. The journal belonged to a distant relative, a woman who had been deemed an outsider in our town decades ago, a name whispered with a mix of reverence and fear. As I flipped through its fragile pages, I felt her despair, her isolation echoing through the years. She wrote of a darkness that had encroached upon Brookshire, a darkness that could not be spoken of openly yet haunted the town's collective memory. Her words were cryptic, but they painted a chilling picture of the past, filled with a sense of foreboding that mirrored my unease. Each passage spoke of the loud sirens, a warning of sorts, summoning the townsfolk to protect themselves from what lay beyond the safety of their homes. Tears pricked my eyes as I realized this journal, once a neglected artifact, now pulsed with urgency, as if the weight of history was begging for acknowledgement. The next evening, I felt compelled to share everything I had learned with the town council, a handful of reluctant faces gathered in the community hall. I presented my findings, my heart racing with the fear of rejection, of being branded the town's nouveau conspiracy theorist. Surprisingly, a gentle murmur rolled through the room, people shifted uneasily in their seats but listened. It was then that Mrs. Haddock, My high school history teacher, now with silver streaks winding through her hair, spoke up, her voice a soft echo against the walls. The lockdowns were initially a precaution, she admitted, back when strange things began happening, children going missing, strange lights in the woods. We created protocols, trying to keep fear at bay. The air thickened with unsaid words, the fear we'd all been harboring surged to the surface. It became clear, amid the muted gasps and shifting murmurs, that we had all felt the tremors of something lurking, something unwelcome, and in trying to shield our community, we had silenced the very whispers that could have liberated us. Afterward, a woman approached me, her eyes weary. My daughter went missing during the lockdown 3 years ago, she confessed, voice trembling. I just thought it was all a coincidence, a sad part of life, but it was never discussed. All we did was follow orders. In that moment, I felt the weight of the town's collective guilt, a shared complicity in shielding ourselves from the dark while allowing it to infiltrate our lives through silence. I understood, finally, that the knowledge we held wasn't just a burden, it was a catalyst for change. Over the following weeks, I wrote to each of my neighbors, shared stories, opened channels of communication, and we began to speak, not in fear, but with hope. The 12 minutes became a platform for healing. We marked that time by uniting, creating rituals of remembrance for the lost, a declaration that we would not let history repeat itself. It was empowering to reclaim our narrative, to turn shadows into light, and slowly, the sirens transformed from dreadful reminders into signals of resilience. I began to realize that, sometimes, tearing down the walls we build was necessary, not just for our peace of mind but for the collective heart of a town that had been silenced too long. And as night fell and the sirens rang true, I joined my neighbors on the front porch, sharing our stories, reclaiming our past, and building a future free from the chains of dark whispers. The fear transformed into a gentle solidarity, as recognition settled in. That night, as the clock struck 10:52, I took a deep breath, allowing gratitude to wash over me, not just for the truth revealed, but for each soul that dared to be vulnerable, to share a story, to embrace the discomfort that eventually led to our coming together. Little did I realize that this was just the beginning. The nights that followed unfolded with a surprising cadence of trust and connection. Every 10:52 brought with it not just the sound of the sirens marking the lockdown, but the unmistakable sense of unity that had been forged in our shared vulnerability. Each evening, more families joined us on the porch, stories flowing like warm honey, sticky and sweet, their narratives intertwining with one another, creating a tapestry of lives colored by hardship, resilience, and kinship. We spoke of old neighbors long forgotten, of the eccentricities that once defined our small town, and of the chilling events that led to our customs, each revelation a thread pulling tighter around our community, stitching the fabric of Brookshire back together. I discovered Mrs. Thompson had once been a gifted violinist, performing with a local symphony before the lockdown enforced her seclusion, and I encouraged her to play once again. The mournful notes she produced carried a haunting beauty that seemed to echo our past sorrows while beckoning hope towards the future. But it wasn't only the adults who found their voices, even the children, who had previously been hushed by the fatigue of our town's rumors, began to share their dreams and fear, whispers of monsters under their beds emerging lightheartedly transformed into shadows of the unknown that haunted us all. As the days slipped by, I watched the essence of Brookshire metamorphose. The self-imposed barriers that once shackled us fell away, replaced by a sense of belonging that filled the gaps of our lives. Neighbors ventured away from their homes after the lockdowns were lifted, engaging in spontaneous community events. I found myself enveloped in this whirlwind of rekindled friendship, revitalizing not just our town but also my sense of purpose. One chilly evening, after another night of storytelling, we decided to shift the lockdown. Rather than retreating behind closed doors at 10:52, we would share a meal, a simple gathering to acknowledge the passage of time and the strength we had collectively developed. So Friday became our unity night. Candles flickered on tables sprawled end to end across Main Street, laughter mingled with the lingering silence of the sirens that would still wail, serving as a reminder of what we once faced, but also of how far we had come. However, as the weeks rolled into months, I started to feel a peculiar tug at my heart, a flutter of unresolved tension that I couldn't quite place. Every so often, I'd catch fleeting glances of unease hidden beneath the smiles shared over meals. I noticed that each night, some families still chose to stay behind locked doors, as if they held fast to an instinct that warned them not to fully embrace this newfound peace. One night, a particularly fierce storm battered Brookshire, and the sirens howled through the air, mirroring the thunder above. The lights flickered, and after a moment of hesitation, our gathering dispersed, People reluctant but ultimately retreating to the safety of their homes. Little did I know, as I settled into bed that evening, that my fleeting concerns were about to crystallize into something far more real. The next morning, just before dawn's light began to spill across the horizon, a frantic knock on my door jolted me awake. It was Mr. Holloway, the town's old librarian, who looked pale and shaken. He gasped for breath, his voice barely above a whisper as he beckoned me outside. "It's happening again," he said, "you have to see." We hurried down the street, following the shadows of our neighbors emerging from their homes, all us drawn together by a mutual fear. The streets of Brookshire felt like a haunted morning, mournful and heavy. As I stepped outside, the atmosphere shimmered with something otherworldly. Our community gathered at the center of town in wide-eyed confusion, murmurs of disbelief echoing the early mist. Then it came, a sudden and powerful shift in the air as a figure appeared at the edge of Ellis Park, bathed in the gray light of dawn. It was an old woman, her face weathered with lines wrapping around cautious blue eyes, an aura that tugged at something deep within me. In her hands, she held what appeared to be a large, brightly painted box adorned with swirling designs reminiscent of the stories we had been sharing. "When the townsfolk forget the darkness that comes after the lockdowns," she called out, her voice surprisingly steady amidst the tension, "the darkness will remind them." A chill pierced the air as she opened the box to reveal strings of delicate memories, old photographs, crumpled letters, and fragments of forgotten lives, pieces of Brookshire long lost and nearly erased from our minds. They danced and flickered in the wind, releasing a wave of whispered voices that echoed through the town, triggering every locked memory of pain, neglect, and fears we had tried to bury. As I watched in horror and fascination, I could feel the energy of the past surging through the crowd, feeding off each individual's shame, guilt, and curiosity for the life they once lived. What does this mean? I wondered, my heart racing between dread and the need for answers. The woman's eyes met mine, and for a moment, the fear evaporated. She offered a knowing smile. "Embrace it," she urged, "and decide for yourselves how to let it shape you." At that moment, I understood what had happened during those surreal nights of sharing. We had built something beautiful in the wake of darkness, a new tradition where vulnerability turned into strength. However, the stories we buried were still there, existing in the fabric of our town, yearning to be recognized. We could no longer lock down our fears nor ignore the consequences of our past. We united not just in declaring our old pain but in acknowledging it together. And so we did. In our newfound circle of acceptance and resilience, we began to share once more. The fears and sadness would not diminish our light, instead, they would guide us towards growth. As the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, the town of Brookshire stood together, brilliant and renewed, prepared to embrace whatever lay ahead while carrying every piece of who we were beneath our shared story. The box of memories became a symbol, reminding us that while we may lock down at twilight, it was the unlocking in the light of day that truly defined our existence. It was during one of those sunny Saturday mornings, where the golden light streamed through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the coffee maker and the half-eaten croissants on the table, that I found myself embroiled in an unexpected argument with my sister, Anna. I had always thought of my sister as a free spirit, the kind of person who danced to her own tune, but that morning revealed a side of her I struggled to comprehend. Anna had recently moved to a small, picturesque town after marrying a local artist, and this new life appeared to be flourishing in its own quirky way. We were enjoying our usual brunch when she casually revealed her plans for her 5-year-old daughter, Molly. "I think it's really important for her to be immersed in her heritage, you know? I want her to learn Spanish, to speak it fluently before English," she said, as she sipped her herbal tea, her expression blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within me. I paused mid-bite, a piece of croissant almost falling from my lips as my fork hovered between the plate and my mouth. "But why not both?" I asked, incredulous. "It's a great idea to be bilingual, but why skip English? This is America, she'll need that language to thrive." Anna looked at me as if I had just suggested burning her favorite art piece. "Why is teaching her English so critical? Spanish is part of our identity. I want her to embrace that." It was the kind of statement that cut deeper than I anticipated, and I felt a flicker of anger rising in my chest. "You know what, Anna? You're insane if you think this is going to work out. You're limiting her future for the sake of cultural stubbornness." The air thickened with tension, the clinking of plates becoming the only sound filling the silence between us as I realized I had crossed a line. There was a moment, just a fragile glimpse, where I could see the hurt in her eyes, and for the first time, I worried that I might lose my sister to something bigger than I could fathom. The two of us, sitting across from each other in that sun-drenched kitchen, felt as if we were standing on opposite shores of a growing chasm. I chased away the rising guilt with a sharp breath, but it only intensified. Anna didn't respond right away. Instead, she set her teacup down with deliberate care, as if to gather her thoughts. The hurt morphed into quieter frustration. You think English is the only way she can succeed, that language alone defines her capabilities? You should know better than anyone how important it is for me to raise her, not just in one culture but in many. I struggled to understand her perspective. True, our upbringing had been steeped in the traditions of our Spanish-speaking family, but this was different. This was an entirely isolated approach to raising a child. Anna, it's not just about language, it's about breaking down barriers in society, especially in this digital age, I reasoned. What will happen when she tries to engage with her peers? She can have that heritage without shutting out other avenues. Her face tightened, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she responded, I'm not shutting anything out. I'm opening doors to her roots, and if you can't see the importance of that, then I don't know what to say. I felt the prick of tears in my eyes, frustration mixed with my instinct to defend not only my view but the future of a child I adored. The brunch devolved into an awkward silence punctuated only by the quiet whir of a fan in the corner, and with each passing second, I feared we were creating a rift that would never heal. I finally broke the silence. I just don't want you to mess this up, Anna. She deserves the best of both worlds. I couldn't read her expression. It was like peering into a fog. She sighed deeply and stood up, indicating brunch was over. Maybe you don't understand parenting as I do, and that's okay, but we have different views, and you're not going to change my mind, she said, her voice steady yet filled with a sadness I felt deep in my own heart. As I left her house that day, I felt a multitude of emotions swirling inside me: guilt, concern, and confusion. Were my intentions right, or had I imposed my own fears onto her parenting style instead of supporting her choices? In the weeks that followed, I distanced myself, trying to think through the layers of our conversation while giving her the time she needed. Yet, messages went unanswered, calls were left unreturned, and soon, I felt like a ghost haunting the corners of her new life. Days turned into weeks, and I watched from afar as Anna shared snippets of Molly's milestones on social media. Photos showed her twirling in a dress, speaking to her friends exclusively in Spanish, interspersed with family gatherings where laughter and warmth were evident. Yet still, there was an absence I couldn't shake. I missed being part of something so vital. The turning point came when I received a surprise text from Anna one afternoon. Can you come over? Molly wants to share something with you. I felt a surge of hope and anxiety as I drove to her house. Once there, I saw Molly sitting cross-legged on the floor, her bright eyes lighting up when she spotted me. Auntie, I want to show you my new story. I wrote it in Spanish. Her enthusiasm was infectious. She pulled out a crayon and paper, presenting a series of drawings alongside Spanish words. Overwhelmed with emotion, I took a seat beside her, helping to read the words as she beamed with pride. In that moment, I could see how my sister's choice was shaping her daughter's identity. Yes, the importance of balance remained essential to me, but this was not the end of the world I feared it would be. It was a beginning. I turned to Anna, who was watching us with a soft smile, clearly happy to see our bond rekindle. You know, maybe I miscalculated, but Molly should learn everything she can, I confessed. I guess you're not insane, after all. Just passionate. Anna laughed, a joyful sound that filled the air. Let's teach her English together, shall we? As we sat together, sketching bilingual stories alongside a bright girl full of dreams, I felt a weight lift. It was in this shared experience that I realized understanding often grows from the seeds of difference, and sometimes, the best way to support someone you love is to embrace their choices, even when the logic of it doesn't fully resonate. In the months that passed, we built bridges back to each other, teaching Molly the values of her heritage and the languages of the world. And while we might not have agreed on everything, that day marked the beginning of a journey, one where we would each learn the language of love, compassion, and acceptance anew. Update: a month later, Anna sent me a video of Molly confidently reciting a children's song in both Spanish and English. She was proud, and so was I. We had found a balance together, and our family felt more united than ever. I knew, without a doubt, that every shade of culture and every word woven together contributes to a tapestry worth cherishing, one that we would continue to nurture hand in hand. As the weeks rolled on after that pivotal day, it felt like a weight had been lifted not just from Anna's shoulders but from our entire family. The tension that had once loomed over our gatherings evaporated, replaced by laughter and warmth that echoed through our living room during those weekend visits. I remember one particular Saturday vividly. The sun shone bright through the kitchen window as Anna prepared an elaborate brunch, her hands busy mixing batter for pancakes while the faint sound of children's laughter danced in the air. Molly, with her little apron tied around her waist, was beaming as she helped her mom, her small fingers smudged with flour, following along in a spattering of Spanish and English. Anna had started incorporating both languages into their routine, making it a fun game instead of an obligation. I watched them together, my heart swelling with joy at how far we had come. I had made it a point to join in and read picture books with Molly, choosing stories that were beautifully rich in both languages, and encouraging her to express her thoughts freely about them, as if we were weaving together our own little storytelling sessions soaked in bilingual charm. Yet, despite these nurturing moments, I still grappled with lingering worries about Anna's earlier stance on language. The implications of what had happened hung around like an old ghost. I often found myself questioning whether we'd truly harmonized our approach or if this newfound balance was temporary, a gentle breeze during a fragile season. One evening, after a family dinner filled with discussions and dreams, I felt compelled to broach that topic with Anna once more. We settled on the worn couch, the evening calming us into a cozy stillness as I leaned into the conversation. Do you ever think about how your perspective has changed? About all the things you once believed? I asked gently, taking care to keep my tone inviting. She paused, her brow furrowed in thought. I do, she finally said, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. I realize now that I was so desperate to hold on to our heritage, to shield her from the chaos of navigating two worlds, that I forgot how beautiful it could be to embrace both. It's like I was seeing a colorful sunrise through a foggy window. Her words struck me, resonating deeply. Our discussion flowed effortlessly as Anna shared how she had once feared that introducing English might dilute their vibrant Spanish traditions, but now she saw it as a way to enhance them. I admired her willingness to grow, to recognize that the act of sharing languages could amplify their family bond rather than divide it. This was indeed a lesson in resilience and love. I could see it shimmering in her eyes, a twinkle that hinted at a fresh beginning. As we spoke, the world outside seemed to fade away, the evening air soothing and infused with the scent of lingering spices from dinner. We reminisced about our childhood, the laughter, the chaos, the little moments that reminded us of why family was so important. It all felt so raw and real, like a warmth spreading through my veins. As we concluded our heartfelt late-night talk, something in me felt lighter, like the fog was finally lifting in my own perception of our family dynamics. A few weeks later, my phone buzzed while I was having my morning coffee. It was another video from Anna. I pressed play, and there was our little Molly again, this time standing proudly on a small makeshift stage, a stuffed bear in her arms as she sang a medley of both languages, her voice sweet and innocent. The audience? Her dolls lined up as if they were the most enthusiastic fans in the world. Look, it's our bilingual superstar. Anna texted alongside the video. Tears brimmed in my eyes as I watched the pure joy radiating from her tiny frame. Little did we realize it then, but we weren't merely teaching Molly. She was teaching us right back how to live freely within a melting pot of culture and language. You see, each day became a chance not just to express ourselves but to intertwine our journeys and uplift one another in the simplest yet most profound of ways. And now, as the memory of that vibrant Saturday whirled through my mind, I realized how much that journey had changed me too. Anna and I had discovered something precious, that communication and understanding go far beyond words. They were the true essence of family, of our shared stories, and the love that bound us tighter than any language ever could. I felt a sense of fulfillment as I recalled our earlier struggles, now merely stepping stones in the sprawling path of our family's narrative. Life may continue to throw challenges our way, but with each passing day, we would face them together, weaving the tapestry of language, love, and acceptance, even stronger. And perhaps one day, I would find the courage to share with Anna how inspiring this journey has been for me, how in cherishing both languages, we have built a legacy of love that I hope Molly passes on, in whichever language her heart chooses to sing. As the days gradually turned into weeks, our family dynamic transformed in ways I never fully anticipated. Evenings, once marked by tension and miscommunication, became vibrant sessions filled with laughter and playful banter, where the rhythmic cadences of both Spanish and English flowed freely around the dining table. Molly's bright smile seemed to radiate warmth as she whimsically switched between languages, eagerly explaining her day to us in a delightful mix that left Anna and me chuckling, wondering in awe at the incredible adaptability of a child's mind. There were moments, like when we jointly read her favorite story, the familiar characters dancing off the pages in both languages, that deepened my understanding of how multifaceted childhood can be, revealing layers of creativity and imagination I had always regarded as intangible until I witnessed it bloom before my eyes. Yet, woven into this delicate tapestry were the threads of occasional misunderstandings. For instance, during a family gathering, Molly inadvertently called her cousin a taco, meaning silly in Spanish, while aiming for the English word goof, sending the whole room into a fit of laughter, but also sparking a hushed moment of confusion as the adults exchanged bemused glances. It was these small mishaps that reminded us of the beautiful chaos interlaced through language learning, an essence not just of acquiring words, but also of forging connections despite missteps. I found myself reflecting on our own childhood lives as I watched Molly interact. Anna and I had faced our share of complexity, each entangled in our unique cultural roots, yet we had always hoped to unite those roots for her, not recognizing at first that our differences were exactly what could bring us closer together. One serene Sunday afternoon, while seated on the patio with my sketchbook brimming with wildflowers, I decided to pen a letter to Anna, one that expressed my gratitude for her resilience, for embracing the quirks of our evolving family dynamics, and for the lessons I had learned through her determination to keep our heritage alive in Molly's heart. It felt vital to communicate my thoughts, hoping to illuminate the bond we were growing not just as sisters, but as allies in this journey of parenthood. With each word, I sought to capture the essence of our melding cultures, striving to refine my expressions, oftentimes whispering them gently to the wind before transferring them on paper, hoping they carried the warmth of my affection. Once the letter was complete, I read it to myself, letting the sentiments wash over me like a soothing balm. When I finally shared it with Anna, her eyes widened, sparkled, and then softened, gratitude spilling from her voice as she hugged me tightly, almost as if the weight of our prior disagreement slipped away along with her exhale. In time, I gathered the courage to voice my thoughts about how this journey had helped me learn to appreciate all shades of language, an awakening that fueled newfound passion within myself, whispering to Anna how our commitment to communicate with love and understanding had reshaped the very fabric of our family. We agreed that we were forging a unique identity, nestled between our cultures, where the love we shared cared less about keeping score on which language was spoken when, and more about the emotional resonance behind every word, how a simple gracias could hold as much heart as thank you. This perspective brought us further together, allowing me to breathe easier in the warm embrace of our joint aspirations for Molly. As the seasons shifted, I often caught glimpses of Molly giggling with her friends, blending her playful banter, reminiscent of a little polyglot conquering the world with every cheerful note. One particularly vibrant afternoon, she elatedly invited her friends over for an impromptu language day in our backyard, where they huddled around crayons and paper, inspiration struck, and a flurry of illustrations of their favorite things burst forth, words fluttering between language borders like butterflies setting free. It struck me in that moment how these budding relationships would someday define her place in the world, building bridges and embracing differences with an open heart. I felt something shift inside, a blossoming of hope and a profound commitment to being a supportive figure in her life, as I knew deeply that no matter where her journey led her, we would be there as her unwavering support. Looking back now, the journey we embarked on was not merely about language, it shaped the pillars of our familial relationship, showing us the incredible strength found in vulnerability, teaching us that acceptance isn't always about being right or wrong, but rather about cultivating an environment filled with compassion and open-ended questions, nurturing apples from both our trees, allowing them to grow together in a delightful orchard. Those initial struggles now felt like whispered lullabies, reminding me of the beauty residing within patience, and as I closed my eyes at night, I felt a sense of peace wrap around me like a cozy blanket, grateful for the families we've built through honesty and love, knowing that this was just the beginning of a brighter story unfolding before us.